Hi, I'm Kata, and this is Torn City News. This is basically just going to be a recap of all of the things that I failed to report on since March when I had the baby. I'll try to do another episode soon to actually catch up with current events, at least more current than this, so bear with me. I tried to do a TCN on Twitch about a month ago without a script. That was an absolutely terrible decision. It was pretty much like the first episode I ever did. The only other one that didn't have a script. Please don't go back and watch it. With a bunch of ums and rants and staring off into space. Which I do that anyway, but at least I do it a lot less when I have a script. So I'm trying this one with a script, and hopefully it'll have minimal editing because I don't have time to do all of that anymore. I quit my job and I'm home, which one would think that I'd have a lot more time to do things like hang out in front of my computer and write and edit YouTube videos. But you've obviously never been a stay-at-home parent if you think that. I am constantly moving, and the only time I get on the computer is generally after everyone is in bed and I am totally exhausted. So I'm exploring other options. I started actually using the TCN Twitter page and the Facebook page that I have set up. I also am trying to use the Twitch account, although I've been failing at all of that lately. Been just really, really busy. Theoretically, these things are easier for me to update with events in the game and do it quickly. And Twitch, I feel like could be fun for live broadcasts and interviews, which is why I signed up for it 2 years ago and never really used it though. I'm hoping to actually record TCN live as well in the future. I'm not doing it right now because the baby hasn't been sleeping and I feel like he's more than likely going to wake up at some point while I'm trying to record this. So I'd rather not be live and trying to do it if he's going to wake up and I have to spend 20 minutes putting him back to bed. Every once in a while, I still get a private message that my videos are what brought a player to Torn. So I'm trying to put in an effort to keep them going. I think they have added a little something extra to the community. At least I hope that they have. Also, I want to say I'm sorry to those players that I did bring to Torn with my videos. Nobody ever actually quits Torn because it's basically the electronic version of crack. We even sit by and watch the game go up in flames where terrible decisions are being made left and right by the owners and staff, and we still aren't able to stop playing. It's insane, really. That leads us nicely to the first story, the latest relentless scandal that turned Torn into World War III. A group of relentless members and friends exploited the bookie system for months and recently ended up having their bookie earnings reversed. Okay, well, it's relentless, so this really isn't anything new and exciting, right? They're pretty much known for their shady as hell dealings. Well, the big issue here is TD3H actually went to both Chedburn and Bogey about the exploit and was given permission to use it. Not quite to the extent that he did end up using it, but he was still given permission. Basically, when he reported it, he downplayed it considerably, which made both Ched and Bogey dismissive. Either could have looked into it themselves, but they were both apparently too busy organizing the new Christmas Town to bother. Don't get me wrong, I'm actually quite pumped about Christmas Town. Months later, they finally noticed that this group of people were winning insane amounts and cut bookie bets down to 10 million while they attempted to get shit in order. Right after they did that is when everything started to be made public and the funds were reversed. The lynch mobs came out hollering to fed the group, but Ched and company decided not to go that route since they were so obviously partially to blame for the issue with their complete negligence. I personally think that removing the funds, plus some, I guess, was a suitable punishment considering the blame is also on the staff members that gave them the green light. One of the members of said group dumped billions of his items in the dump in response to losing his bookie winnings, while others took a bit of a different approach. TD3H, Hildegard, Nash, and Proxima decided to let the world burn by dropping dirty bomb after dirty bomb after dirty bomb. Theoretically, these bombs were meant to do a couple of things. One, possibly cause so much action that it screwed something up in the game, which it possibly did because the forum search was down and that made me extremely grouchy, made things a lot more difficult for me to look things up. And two, cover the fact that they wanted to bomb Jux, which is Bogey's faction, but were worried that they would be feted for revenge on a staff member. It's kind of ironic, really, that these bombs created such an excitement in the community that Torn had been severely lacking for months, if not actually years. Chedburn and his staff have been killing the game by reducing the risks involved with playing. They mistakenly think that players don't need to have conflict to stay interested in the game. Sure, removing bad things in the game will keep some newer players around initially, but in the long run, you're left with a boring-ass game that nobody wants to play. We need drama. We need excitement. Nobody likes to be the player at the center of these things, but it's a necessary evil to keep people emotionally invested. So really, the bombs were initially released in a fit of anger towards the game, and they're ironically helping it to survive. Kind of funny. Airports had been closed almost constantly because of the bombs, which led to a lot of lower-level players being pretty upset at the people dropping them, since lower levels traditionally depend on traveling for their main source of income. Prox and Hildy did grave their guides, though, which is a bit of a bummer. Although the last time Nash and Hank took their guides down, I'm pretty sure they put them back up eventually. At least I know Nash did. I'm assuming that way down the line, we'll probably see something of the sort happen here, because I doubt anybody's actually going to stay gone. I didn't actually check and see if anybody actually is still gone. It might be. I know Nash isn't gone. It's funny how people forget about this sort of thing and just kind of keep playing Torn Crack, I'm telling you. All of these dirty bombs being dropped have opened up the forums to suggestions on what improvements can be made for these events. Currently, it's pretty much the same thing every time, even with the same writing pretty much every time. It wouldn't be hard to at least change the scripts up a bit and freshen up the wording on the bombs. Beyond the writing, there's been a lot of good ideas thrown around about what could be added to make them a bit more interesting. I've seen multiple people say things like, "Oh God, another dirty bomb. How boring," when they're supposed to basically be the biggest event in the game. Even more recently, there have been counterattacks on Relentless with multiple bombs being dropped on the faction. As of the point when I was actually writing this, nobody had come forward to claim the attacks, but I haven't really been on Torn that much, and it was a really long time ago when I wrote this, so they very possibly could have since then. Man, I just know a whole ton, huh? On the subject of dirty bombs, there have been a few other newsworthy bombs since I reported last. Pretty sure I touched on Captain Clitoris's fetting and the Relentless bomb reversal in one of my videos, but there was also a bomb on natural selection that was reversed as well. This led Bogey to make an announcement stating that funds used to purchase or make dirty bombs are now going to be vetted before the bomb will go off. Ched also announced that they now have a system in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again, which means it'll probably happen again. Cynic was spotted purchasing supplies to make another dirty bomb. He's known for basically just dropping bombs out of boredom, so that could be interesting. L4 finally made good on his dirty bomb lottery scam, and with quite a creative solution to his dilemma. He had basically auctioned off the target for one of his dirty bombs right before they were disabled. A player named CCWY had contributed a large sum of money to choose who the dirty bomb was going to go off on and had chosen Subversive Alliance, but only because a certain user was in that faction, Declorin. Well, by the time the bombs were able to be used again, a lot had changed. 39th was friendly with Insurgency, which included SA, and CCWY was nowhere to be found. This left L4 in a sticky situation. Could he get away with not bombing his allies? Would anybody notice since CCWY was not around? Well, they did. And he was accused of scamming people out of their money. Luckily, Declorin, for whatever reason, decided to guest in the faction formerly known as TRT, which also contained 39th's sworn enemy Willis at the time. Since the main reason CCWY wanted SA bombed was because of Dec's unwholesome presence, L4 was able to drop the bomb on TRT with Dec in it and pretty much fulfill his obligation to the lottery, while also getting Willis and Dude as a bonus. Some people still weren't satisfied with the solution, but I thought it was pretty creative. Hellraiser decided to have his temporary 420 group raid TRT while they were already suffering the after effects of that bomb. It got so bad that TRT's then leader, the lovely Lily Pink, decided to sell the faction, or at least appeared to get them to stop. I'm still not entirely sure if it was actually sold or if she's currently selling it, which I think actually that's been wrapped up, but considering she recently posted the faction on the for sale thread that the faction was for sale. If she didn't actually sell it, another creative solution to a sticky situation. I love it when people think outside the box in this game. The iOS app is no longer allowed in the Apple Store because they claim it's basically the same thing you can do in the browser. Well, I have news for you, Apple, if that is your real name. The Torn app is actually quite different. There's actually less features than when you use your browser. Take that. Actually, I never used the iOS version. I just know that I installed the Android version for a day when I got my new phone and realized quickly that I couldn't open up multiple browser windows or open outside links. So I installed that shit very quickly. No, thank you. In a strange move by Chedburn, warnings were added to items in bazaars that were marked a high percentage over their value. This suggestion wasn't actually a suggestion that was backed by the community, and most people were super annoyed that it was implemented. The general consensus on this one was that staff were sick of replying to threads where people were scammed out of money from accidentally buying Vicodin instead of Xanax, and they just were being lazy. It seems pretty shitty to me and just the latest move to bring Torn one step closer to its demise. As I said in my rant earlier, people may think they want the game to be easier, but all that's going to do is make people bored. People aren't going to stick around if there's no conflict. The Vicodin scam was interesting. It added content to the game, and it's a shame that they decided to go off of two people's opinions instead of the majority of the community. On a more positive note, Chedburn decided to ask the community for their opinions before making further mugging changes. He posted multiple polls, and I want to repeat, multiple polls about the changes, which will come after mug protection was changed to help combat the abuse of the feature. Now players will only be mug protected against the amount of money that they had on hand when mugged, as long as they don't remove any money from their cash on hand. People used to put the amount they needed protection for on their person and then have a friend mug them, thus covering them for the protection time so they could sell large items without worrying about losing a substantial amount of money. In theory, this should prevent that from happening. It's really too bad that Chedburn doesn't have someone on payroll that does things like communicate with the community about how they feel about changes and get their opinions on things like future changes and scandals and rule changes. You know, like community things. He should really find someone to do that. Oh, wait. In an effort to make territory warring more interesting, Ched has added rackets to the map. These rackets are spots that supply daily extra items for a faction and are meant to entice factions to war each other. It's a very cool idea, but it's already being abused. Larger factions are creating satellite factions to claim these territories from smaller ones. A solution was proposed to not allow the items to be transferred from faction to faction and or sold, but make them so they have to be used from the armory. Personally, I think that's a great idea and would help prevent this from being just another way for large factions to shit on the game by farming. Can you tell if farming annoys me? Weapon accuracy and dexterity were adjusted somewhere in there to make Dex actually worth training again. Dex horrors were very excited about this change, and it was a little bumpy at first, but it seems to have smoothed out nicely. New energy drinks were added to the game, although they don't give out a whole lot of energy. The way they were introduced was well done, with free samples being given out to the community and a competition in place to decide the logos for the cans. I rated up on that one.